There you go. Hey, true believers, Englentine here with Eric. Back issue Breen. I'm going to keep saying that until someone catches on to it. Yeah.
Hello to the no one here yet.
No one's here yet. Yeah, I know, right? Wow. But you know what? When do I do a 3 o'clock live stream? I'm okay with that. So, but I keep bringing up a topic that I thought might be fun. I don't remember where I got the idea, but where would you end comics? And I'm not talking about as an industry as a whole, because that would be right now. Let's just shoot it. Let's just put it out of its misery, right? But what I mean is, what is if comics were not continuous, infinite, where would you end this character? What would have been the perfect ending for, say, Batman or Superman, Daredevil, whatever? I came up with an ending. That bird left something on my face. There you go. Okay, I came up with a perfect ending for a couple of characters, and I figured we should talk about what could have been the ending for others. To give you an example of what I'm talking about, Kraven's Last Hunt is a great storyline within the Amazing Spider-Man, Web of Spider-Man, Peter Parker, and there was another one, right? Or was it just the 3? It was the 3. Yeah. But it was an amazing story between those, where Kraven finally catches Spider-Man and he buries him. Doesn't actually kill him, because the burying was symbolic enough for him. But then he put on Spider-Man's costume and went out to prove that he could be a better Spider-Man than actual Spider-Man. And thus ending his obsession with Spider-Man. Spoiler alert for this 40-year-old story. After he does this, he puts a shotgun in his mouth and he blows his brains out. Perfect ending for Kraven the Hunter. He never should have seen shouldn't have been on another thing that wasn't a Slurpee cup or a poster or something like that. Or in the movies, because that's a whole different ball game. But for me, that is his greatest ending.
You know, I think about that, and we've talked about this, and I've agreed with that. The only thing I would change is I would have had, when Spider-Man digs himself up and goes after Kraven, there should have been a confrontation that would have ended with the convenient cliff where he's hanging on and Spider-Man goes to save him, and Kraven lets go, because he didn't. To me, like I said, blowing your brains out, that's kind of a coward's way out, regardless of how you got to that point. But if it was one of those where he's proven what he thinks he needs to prove and just lets go of life, and maybe you see you see his broken body at the bottom of the cliff, I guess you could say that's also a form of suicide. But it would be, to me, more, there should have been something like that, because to me it was kind of like I said, because I don't think Kraven had ever shown any inclination to be suicidal.
Yeah. Well, if he let that happen, then not only would he have gotten to show that he was better than Spider-Man, but if in a fight he goes over a cliff, Spider-Man tries to save him and he still falls, it's a Spider-Man failure. So it's one more jab. So I think that would work. But that's generally where what I'm talking about. And I invite you, if you could think of one while we talk, go on ahead. But obviously the thumbnail, the character I thought of was Spider-Man's greatest end. And I think Spider-Man should have ended, I guess, 25 years ago, with one of the worst stories Spider-Man's ever been a part of, and that is the Clone Saga. At the end of the Clone Saga, obviously Ben Reilly comes back. They're fighting around, and they come up with they were going to come up with a stupid idea that Ben Reilly was the actual real Peter Parker, right. And of course Peter Parker is the clone. But I think ultimately Peter Parker's now married to Mary Jane. He's got a life. So when you have Ben Reilly come in and he goes, well, I'm the real Peter Parker, abso-freaking-lutely. Have a good day there, son. Move on. Let him realize that with great power means great responsibility, but this guy has great power also, and now you have the responsibility of a wife and possibly children. So we get to see Peter Parker actually go off into the sunset happy, and this new character takes over.
The only thing I don't like about that is I like the fact that when that was what they were going to do, they actually, this was back at a time when Marvel listened to their fans, and the backlash was so enormous, and they left themselves an out that they took to put the genie back in the bottle and have it be Peter that was actually the true Spider-Man. If there was a way to do it to where neither one of them, there was doubt between who was who, and instead of seeking definitive proof, they agree not to, and Peter Parker goes off into the sunset with Mary Jane, and Ben Reilly takes over the mantle. You know, even though I don't think Spider-Man's a mantle, but they're basically the same person. I'd have been okay with, I would have grudgingly been okay with that, because you still have Spider-Man and Peter Parker's still out there, and he may have been the guy that did all those heroic things, because that's the part I didn't like, because we were finding out that, you know, that all those things that we thought Peter Parker had done, suddenly they find out he didn't.
But you could still have the Peter Parker we know and have read between the beginning of the Clone Saga in the 70s to the end of the Clone Saga in the 90s. You could still have the one we followed be the real guy, but the public doesn't need to know that. The Marvel public.
No,
So he, like I said, he's married to Mary Jane. It's time to step away. It's time to go now. You're done. You've done your part, and somebody's here to take over. It would have been a great legacy character. Would have been a great legacy moment. The Spider-Man comics can continue, but the Spider-Man character doesn't have to. And that's where some of these come in, and some of these you have to ask yourself, because there were some deaths in the 90s, should they have stuck, or should the comics have kept going as they did? Hello to everybody in the chat. We got Gotham City and Joe, Anthony Biello, and Dark Admiral. How y'all doing today? We are talking about what would have been the perfect ending for characters. Comic book characters, because look, sometimes they drag on, and right now we would all like to put a bullet in the brain of the comic book industry itself, but truly, where would you end a character that would be like a good narrative ending? Like I thought about two things in the 90s that happened: the breaking of the bat and the death of Superman. Two of the biggest events of the decade, really.
Yeah.
And it occurred to me that Superman could have had his ending. I do not like the fact that it would have been at the hands of an unknown, but Superman could have had his ending. It's done. They came in with these 4 different characters. Boom. Clark Kent's gone. He's dead. I would have been okay with that. But no way in hell Bruce Wayne would have let anything but death stop him from becoming Batman again. So I thought about these things, and I thought about, okay, if you've got these 4 characters, they come in and they are supposedly the replacements for Superman. Superman's dead. It's done. It would have been a 2-on-2 battle, 2 villains, 2 heroes. You got Steel, you got Superboy, and then you've got, of course, the Eradicator. And
Eradicator wasn't a true villain, though. He was
not at that point.
No, I don't know if he's, you know, in years that I wasn't reading, if he'd become one, but because I believe he was even a member of the Outsiders for a while.
Okay, I'll stand mistaken.
Yeah, Cyborg Superman was just straight up. Yeah.
But even still, you could have 3 against the 1, and it establishes a Superboy, a Superman, and of course Steel all over again. New characters. You move on. Clark Kent is dead. Would that have been a decent ending for that character for you, though?
You know, in a maybe in a 2-part Elseworlds or a movie trilogy.
Yeah,
because it's hard. It's hard to think of the perfect ending for superheroes. It's a lot easier to think of the perfect last story for villains.
it sometimes is, but yeah, this is the
That-
part where
yeah,
can we let them ride off into the sunset or have the violent death that ultimately a life of violence would lead to?
yeah. I mean, yeah, yes. He basically saved the Earth because without if Doomsday isn't stopped, and
He'd go
there's
around until everything.
nobody on Earth that could do it. But here's the thing with comics and being part
We're
of
taking
comics.
the brand out of this. We're just talking about the narrative.
Yeah. Um, i- in a comic book universe, there are characters that can do this to Superman.
Yeah,
So it would kind of cheapen the death of Superman if, say, depending on what incarnation of the Spectre you have, the Spectre could just come pick up Doomsday and go, see ya.
yeah.
Then what did the death accomplish? So that's again, that's the problem with the larger than life, because like I said, I always circle back to No Man's Land. Great story, but where was the Justice League? They could have found everybody that could have possibly survived, and that's the kind of thing I said. So it's hard to say now. If you take out all those factors, then yeah, I could see that as being a good ending, because I think he had time to even say goodbye to Lois before he died in that last page. But yeah, that's it's hard when you're dealing with, like I said, fictional universes where there's, like I said, yeah, Marvel has the Elders. Hell, every one of them it can squash Thor,
Yes.
who's the most powerful hero that Marvel has.
And just to put a little more info, what I'm trying to do is, I know the outside world, I know the business of comics, and I know that yes, you cannot kill Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. It ain't gonna happen. But what I'm talking about is, if you were to give these characters a dignified send-off, at what point in their history would that have been? What point in history would Wonder Woman have experienced? Batman, like I said, except for death, he's not going out. And in my opinion, kicking Darkseid's ass and ended up losing his life doing it was actually pretty good. I thought that was, as much as that is a crappy story, that's not a bad death.
Women, who are we talking about?
Batman.
When did he fight Darkseid? And
Final Crisis, right? Didn't
he
lose his, yeah.
I put that in the Marvel post 2012.
That never happened. That never happened.
No, that was awful.
Yeah, but it did, and yeah, that's where I would have put Batman's end had we needed him to end.
Here's the Batman one. He comes back. He builds himself back up to get his rematch with Bane without having just fought 90% of his rogues gallery, because remember that's what Bane did.
Nightfall. Yeah,
and he wins, but he realizes that it took everything he had to beat him at full strength. He goes, this may be something I cannot continue to do. But then you have the same thing. We talk about Doomsday. Superman loses to a basically a new villain.
Yeah, it should be
same thing with Bane. But that speaks to the fact that DC has never had strong villains. That's why a guy Jack Kirby created in 1970 is the big dog villain of the DC universe, not any of the ones that were created in the 32 years before Kirby came up with him.
Right.
So that's because, like I said, Bane was capable of doing something that nobody else. Joker couldn't break his back. He could break him there by killing everybody in his that he'd come in contact with. But both is like we had to get to the 90s to get that foe, that unbeatable foe for arguably the two most popular characters in the history of, pop culture fiction.
Right. But okay, so only one. I've gotten some pushback from you on these. Like, okay, well, I don't know. Where would you end these? But that is part of the challenge, because we do know for a fact that these comic books continue. I would have never had Green Lantern survive in any way, shape, or form Final Night. He comes back as Parallax. He has his hero's death. To me, Jeff Johns and Ethan never get together and do Green Lantern Rebirth. He's done. Flash had the perfect death. There was absolutely he was a better character as a martyr than he was ever in the pages of the Flash.
Now, at DC, I mean, it's not entirely Jeff Johns and Ethan's fault on Green Lantern, because they did turn him into the Spectre, which kept him in at least the fans, orbit for a time. I don't even think they should have done that. Because like I said, the Final Night, because he went irrevocably evil. Now, I know they retconned it, but there was
the Parallax thing that made me kill every one of the Guardians.
Yeah, there was
but one
enough good in him to where when it was time to step up, he did that. And I said one of the best comic book moments, and I've been doing this for 50 years, was when I think it's Pharaoh Lad is out there, or whichever one of his characters is out there.
That was Pharaoh.
With the ring. He goes, let me help you, son. I know a thing or two about rings. And that was just like, you realize, damn, the villain's going to save the day when no one else could. When not all the heroes' powers, Lex's brain, nobody, Hal Jordan's going to save the day. And I like those couple years after that when they were eulogizing him, and Batman's like, fuck that. Oh, sorry. We're okay.
We're good.
Yeah, I guess when he's like, screw that. He goes, I don't care what he did. He's well, because they didn't all become Pollyanna over it. We could as fans,
and they shouldn't, in my opinion. No. He destroyed.
Yes.
So, he should not have been forgiven.
But that was a heck of a moment, though, for comic readers, and that's it. They had Kyle Rayner, they had Guy, they had John. They didn't need it. It wasn't like Hal had been there since 1940. Granted, it's tough to cut ties after 34 or 5 years or whatever, but let it happen. I said the same thing with Flash. We should have never seen him after Crisis issue 8.
He had absolutely the greatest. He
that's the best. Yeah.
Not just he didn't just save the world. He saved like 4 universes, 5.
Yeah, he saved what was left. He saved everything that could possibly be saved at that point. And and why I say Hal or Barry had the best superhero death of all time was because Hal was a supervillain when he saved the universe. Barry was a hero. So it wasn't a redemption like it was for Hal, or an attempted redemption. So in those two, like I said, the Flash, we can't top that. I mean, that was the best because it actually was done.
Yes.
And I don't know about you. I remember there was a Flash story arc. I believe Wade wrote it in the 70s, not the 1970s, but in the Wally West series in the issue 70s, where they thought Barry'd come back. And he had the crew cut, and it looks like he was, they thought they were really convinced it was the real Barry. I think it turned out to be the Reverse Flash. I don't remember, but and those things like those, is he back? Is it real? Only to have your hopes dashed. I like that about it because because with speedsters, there's always possibility of time travel, stuff like that, and there's always that false hope. Like maybe someday Charlie Brown will, get with the little red-haired girl. It's never going to happen, but
he got a little bit of a moment of Valentine's Day. It's Valentine's Day, Charlie Brown. He
That's
did have a little moment, and then in the movie, which by the way is awesome, He actually did get a little moment with a redheaded girl, and I got to tell you, my eyes were it's so cool.
Did they use? Did they show her?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, why don't they just show Vera from Cheers then? Why don't they
I know, right?
Have Miss Othmar speak.
They had the moment though. So the last nail in the coffin, according to Cartoons and Comics, was the guy. I don't know. I didn't read the Terror thing. I wanted to. I was going to, but never did. Because in all honesty, I lied. I didn't want to. Marvel had the end books as Dark Admiral. Can't say I was impressed or agreed with the ones I read. And that's what we're talking about. What's the best narrative ending? Like, where would you have ended it? I've got one more that actually happened, but then they retconned it, and I think Eric will agree with this. But let me get through. They need to do a King Arthur thing and have Batman, Superman sleeping in a paradise island while Wonder Woman watches over them until they're needed again. Jason Todd, who I think we can all agree with that. Jason Todd should have remained dead. He came back as a villain. He cut heads off of freaking mafia dons. There's not, in Batman's book, you're not coming back from that. You're not. He's going to continue after you until you're in Arkham or Blackgate or something along those lines. He should have been stayed dead, in my opinion, as well. Between him and paralyzing of Barbara, it set up a really good no one is safe in the Batman universe. Talking about the Joker there. And Cartoons is saying the best part of mangas is that there is an end with Sailor Moon, Dragon Ball, so forth and so on. But what do you think about that? Jason Todd, I think, should remain dead after the beating.
No.
No,
you
disagree?
Tell you why.
Okay.
Because, if Jason Todd had remained the character that he was originally created to be and remained up through the Legends miniseries, but they basically called an audible because your good guy Jason, your golly gee whiz Jason, made it through the crisis and into the post-crisis DC.
Okay.
Then Max Allan Collins had an idea. Let's reimagine him as a juvenile delinquent. That version, who cared that he died?
Mm-hmm.
He was a dick, but he comes back as a dick, and he's a villain. And I agree. Batman would have made it a point to.
So at least he should have remained a villain.
Well, but there was but even though he was a douchebag, he was Batman's partner, and he did know the difference between right and wrong. So maybe didn't always practice that. Now, I would have been good either way. If they never brought him back, that'd have been fine. But it's like, but if he'd been that golly gee whiz guy that the Joker killed, that would have been like a holy crap kind of thing. And again, but then it was like, you asked me what the end of the Joker story should be. I said, well, nobody wrote it because it should be like, what was the game? Was it Clue? Where it was, the candlestick, the rope. They find the bodies. Like 10 different people could have killed him. That's what they should have done. And the suspect list should have been everybody from Batman to Jim to Barbara to Dick to.
I would have been fine. Now, of course, they didn't. But I think the ending of Joker should have been No Man's Land. He had just shot Commissioner Gordon's wife in the face.
Yep.
They've got the guns on him. Batman says, I won't stop you. Blam. That's the end of the Joker. That is where the Joker should have ended.
That I could not agree more. And we even talked about this also. Said they could have done that and had someone else inspired by him take up being the Joker, because we've never known definitively who he is.
Right. Well, it could have been the three Joker thing. Could have revived him. We wouldn't really have missed much, because they did use the Joker, but they got to overusing him.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's a problem you get when they've also overused the hell out of Batman. But I would rather have been one Joker. He's dead. Someone else becomes the Joker. It's like, crap, here we go again. And then every couple of years, you kill that one because, like I said, I'm sorry, I don't care how principled Batman is. At some point, he's going to snap his neck in the interest of saving thousands of lives that he knows are gone.
It's something that they find it easier to write Superman snapping somebody's neck than it is Batman. It really is. I mean, we had that moment where we
Superman did it to a Kryptonian, and the potential for violence. I mean, this guy could end the planet. It would take the Joker a long time to do that. But to me, I don't see the difference because, like I said, when you deposit him in Arkham and you know damn well he's going to get out and kill anywhere from dozens to hundreds to thousands of people, at some point, it's hard to have sympathy for the good guys.
Well, I got to admit, if I were Batman, I would basically torso him. He would no longer have arms and legs. I didn't kill him. He's right there.
Rip off your arms and beat you with them.
Yeah. There is a character, and we'll probably end this one out with this guy because you and I have talked about this. The perfect ending was a bullet to the head on the White House steps or whatever building to Captain America. I know we would have lost out on some Brubaker, but that would have been the perfect ending to Captain America. I mean, Steve Rogers, I know they gave it to Sam Wilson, and that was crap. But tell me a perfect ending, and tell me we wouldn't probably have been better off not to have 6 years of Ta-Nehisi Coates and a year of really bad Mark Waid.
Well, unfortunately, what we did get was Captain America Reborn, and then the big three came together for an adventure where they mended fences. That would have been a good time just to end Marvel Comics.
Right. Yeah.
Because Bendis was still a halfway decent writer. You didn't cringe when you saw his name on the front of a book like you do now. I have a problem with the ending for this. Basically, the symbol of hope in America, and I realize, good Lord, what they've done to him since then. Being shot by the woman he loves under the influence of was the Red Skull at the time. I don't even remember who it was, but because I think back to I remember Avengers 176 where Michael is just wiping everybody out, and he depowers for a second, and that's when Captain America strikes, and he almost beats him.
Where would you end him?
I don't know. Because I said,
was there a story before that actually stands as this would have been like? Would you have had him just stay nomad when he gave up the shield and
no? Because
walked away
that
with
was
his ideals.
Because that was Steve Englehart, having a bitch fit over Watergate, and as we found out, God, that is so insignificant compared to what future politicians have done. So that no, as I said, because he basically used a real world incident to take Now, when the government stripped him because he wouldn't play ball
later, when John Walker took over,
yeah, of course, that was again. Those were people that didn't like the president, at that time either. But I digress. I don't know. I mean, there's so many stories where Captain America was just such a hero that maybe one of those. But I mean, I can't think of it off the top of my head. But I would want him to go out doing something heroic, not being perp walked like he was in issue 25.
Yeah.
No disrespect to Mark Millar, but that part of the story was kind of ridiculous. But it's I don't know. Like I said, because again, it's so much easier to come up with villains endings.
Well, let's hear one.
Well, that's with Dr. Doom.
Okay, Dr. Doom.
Yeah. Fantastic Four 200. Reed Richards defeats him fair and square for the first and probably only time. No gadgets. He just outsmarts him and outfights him. And I mean, because I said, the Thing did it once. Torch and Sue never did, because this was before Sue had Galactus level powers because she's a woman and it's Marvel now.
Yeah.
And it was Reed. Like I said, they were college, intellectual rivals that carried over to that point. So many confrontations, and Reed finally definitively wins. That Dr. Doom should have just, slinked away or whatever that word is, and that's it.
Okay.
But
I like that. That makes a lot of sense. Obviously, it would have been a great ending for a great villain. There is an ending. I would like us to find a different ending to one that it was recent. It was handled poorly. It's Marvel. There has to be something better for the Punisher out there that happened before, where you could say, you know what, the best starting point, you start with Amazing Spider-Man 129, you read through, but here is the end. You don't have to read past this right here. What would that be?
Here's the problem. One of the problems with the Punisher was the writers that did, when he was written well for all those many years, they took a Dick Tracy approach. Once the villain was dead, he was dead. But where they went one better, it was Barracuda was the only villain that ever survived his encounter with Punisher. I think, I think Jigsaw may have, so that might not have been 100% correct. But he didn't have that quintessential foil. Because, like, remember the original Hawaii Five-0 series?
Yeah.
Do you remember Wofat?
Not even a little bit.
He was the guy they couldn't catch because they could never get anything on him, and he would pop up every couple of years or maybe a couple times a season. And he even when Cam Fong left the show, they had Wofat kill him, sped by the police precinct, opened the door, and just rolled him out, a la guest star on Police Squad style, and he still couldn't get him. And I think McGarrett finally got him in the last season, like the last
yeah.
But Punisher didn't have that guy. If he did, the only reason why Barracuda got a second story was he was so over the top, and they were Max stories. Do you remember him? The cartoonishly giant black dude with the,
no, I remember the show. I've watched a few.
No, I'm talking about the Punisher. The Barracuda.
Oh, the Punisher. Okay, yes.
He was the only character that actually got a second arc.
Okay.
And basically, he got torsoed by sharks and was still coming. Almost like Manucci. In Marvel, we have to say, not torso, it's Manucci.
Okay.
Because she was the mob boss that had her arms and legs blown off, and she's coming at Punisher just like nubs. And he basically kicks her through a burning building.
But where could we have ended the Punisher though? There has to be an end
if there'd been somebody that since there wasn't the guy, like I said, that quintessential villain that he couldn't defeat once and for all.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, because you're never going to eliminate crime.
I got a spot.
All right.
I really do have a spot that could have at least it could have at least ended it, but there's a question mark. After he in front of Captain America blows a couple of villains away, Captain America sits him down, has them in handcuffs. What the hell are you doing? He goes to jail. He goes to serious freaking maximum. What's that one for all the superheroes? Prison in the ocean.
Was it the Vault?
The Vault. Okay, he goes to the Vault and he stays there, and he's not written of again until maybe decades later. Anything but that piece of shit ending that they just gave him, that broke the fucking character. Is seriously, he needs that. He needs that ending. Over what we were actually given.
Oh, the Raft.
The Raft.
It wasn't the Vault.
There we go. You mean the Raft? Okay. First live stream I managed to watch live since my vacation. Hey, Docino, what's up? Glad you're here. We're just talking about what would be the perfect, and if you've guys got one, what would be the perfect ending, whether it was there or it was a possibility of being there. I don't want to hear like a absolutely made up, God bless you for your creativity, but it has to be in continuity with the comics. Like I said, Punisher wasn't put in the Vault or the Raft, but he should have been after he shot somebody in front of Captain America. What or how, where was a perfect ending so that character would have been saved from what we call Marvel these days or what we call DC these days? What do you think? What is a good ending? Much like I think Elektra should have never been seen again after Bullseye rammed Psy through her chest. I think it was a cop out for the resurrection of Elektra in issue number 190. Sorry, 181. Also to the point where she went to the hospital and then she was buried. That means they did an autopsy. Her organs aren't in the same place.
They dug her up. I mean, Matt dug her up, and it was her.
Yeah,
but they had all this, this mysticism with the hand and blah blah blah
bullshit.
Blah. But
and then afterwards, she was the best thing she was utilized in was the rise of the imperfects. I've got to tell you, Elektra's end was the battle with Bullseye. And look, sometimes heroes lose. That was a big loss.
Oh, I agree. I would have been fine. But here's the thing, though. Whether it was executed properly or not, this wasn't a case where someone kills somebody and another writer comes along years later and finds a way to bring him back.
This was Frank
Miller's plan all along. And
he was wrong. That could, you know what? I might mark that as the beginning of the downfall.
He didn't mean that, Ash. He didn't mean that.
Absolutely. He was wrong to resurrect Elektra. Now, you talk about I brought up Daredevil, and you say it's easier to do villains than heroes. After Kingpin totally annihilated Matt Murdock's life in Born Again, around issue 300, Matt Murdock did that with the King. He reversed it, and they took down the Kingpin. That would have been awesome. That would have been a great ending for him. To finally have been revealed, to finally have been put out to pasture, he's done.
Talking about a good ending for the Kingpin or Daredevil?
Yeah. Oh, the Kingpin. Daredevil's like Batman. Daredevil won't stop.
Yeah, well, here's something else. When basically Daredevil went like that to Bullseye and let him fall to, if he dies, so be it. I mean, Daredevil, I said he dropped him.
Yes.
And somehow he managed to heal. But that one should have killed Bullseye, and that should have been the end of him because, again, you can't let guys like that run around.
Right.
Because they will. It's just, how big's the body count going to be this time?
Okay. Now, Dark Admiral saying Green Goblin had the perfect death. I guess that's the one after he kills Gwen Stacy. It was the perfect death. We should never have seen Green Goblin again. Now you're getting the gist. Now you're finding out what I was trying to talk
agree with that.
about.
I will say, I got to where, I just when it became obvious that what's done is done, they brought him back, and boy, they bring him back in a big way. And again, because they're probably thinking, hey, DC's got something going with this new Lex Luthor. Who do we have? Well, we killed him 20 years. How they made that connection. How Norman went from, because he went at the end of The Gathering.
Yeah.
How he went from that to Marvel's Lex Luthor, basically in charge of everything. That was fairly clever.
Yeah. Oh, obviously, if we kill these, go ahead.
I was saying, in Bendis' defense, he wasn't the one that brought him back. Because that had been done by like Howard Mackey and whoever else was writing the Spider books at the time.
Yeah, obviously, when we're talking about this, we are erasing some stories. I like the Sinestro War, but I still think that Hal Jordan should have never returned from his death as Parallax. Yeah, we are definitely erasing some good stories, but the truth is the best narrative ending for Elektra was getting stabbed. The best narrative ending for Clark Kent was the death of Superman. Best narrative ending for Bruce Wayne was getting killed by Darkseid. That is where it should have stopped, because while you might have gotten some great stories, that was absolutely the perfect ending. And we have cartoon saying Tony Stark, after Civil War begins, to put down his armor and because it's too much power for one man to have. Spider-Man should have ended right around the second Clone Saga. That's actually what I said, Geeky, that I mentioned how Peter Parker should have walked off into the sunset with Mary Jane and let Ben Reilly be Spider-Man. Nobody would have known the difference. And we also mentioned that, you're repeating what we were saying, because, we also mentioned the Flash. perfect ending in Crisis. So okay, we're gonna end this up because I got to take my daughter to work. But we get one more. Who had the perfect ending and is now just treading water? There's got to be one more we can dig up, what we could think of, a villain, a hero, who had that perfect ending. That MK says Wolverine was a good death. Are you talking about the death of Wolverine? I guess it was okay.
I was already checked out of Marvel by then.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know.
But so I don't know too much, but let's see.
Well, Galactus at the end of Spider-Man Fantastic Four 175, maybe, or after 243, because then he wouldn't have been around to be someone else's bitch.
Yeah, that was a horrible, horrible story. Well, who's Galactus the herald of? Why does he have to be a herald of anybody?
Like I said, I was talking about the other day. I said, every Marvel writer in the early 80s, well, not every, but most of them were better than Donny Cates. Sorry, modern.
Yeah, that was a horrible storyline. It really was.
So I should have killed Black Bolt off before Saladin Ahmed decided he could talk. And he became the absorbing man in prison.
Supergirl should still be dead after Crisis.
Technically, yeah. I mean, well, maybe she is. Well, no, you can thank Jeff Loeb for that because bring back the Matrix to me was fine because it you got to see the character, but it wasn't. And then when Peter David came up with merging them with a Linda, new Linda Danvers, also was fine. Jeff Loeb, I said, I'm assuming has a lot of the same way of thinking as Jeff Johns and Mark Waid, with this reverence for the Silver Age. People forget that the average age of DC readers at that time was about 7. Now, I like going back and reading those old comics as much as the next guy, but they had to grow past that. That's why, I mean, they were getting annihilated in sales. And unfortunately, even when they became better in Marvel, they were still getting annihilated, but that's another.
I've got one. I have one. They did continue her in the team book. It's not necessarily a death, but it is an end to the character where eventually she would have just had to realize, look, I can't do this anymore. I like staying around here, but I'm not one of you anymore. And that's Storm. And what was it called? Life and Death, Part 1 and 2? Love and Death. Yeah. Storm got hit by a gun that was meant for Rogue. And it was going to take away Rogue's powers. By the way, this gun has disappeared, by the way. They never recreated. They never did. And Storm lost her powers. And it was a beautiful story. Those books were 2 of the best Storm stories ever. And we would not have had to watch her go through the Black Panther debacle and all that kind of stuff. I think she sticks around for a little bit, but then realizes this is not my place anymore. Have a good day. Walks off into the sunset, and she's somewhere.
Well, she could have gone off and been like a street level character, like a Dakota North.
Maybe so. Maybe so.
Because there's a very interesting character, and there's more to her than her powers, as those issues proved.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So
you've been good at debunking mine, but come on up with some of your own, dude.
No, I said I'm like John Byrne. I can't create shit on my own, but I can just expound on whatever.
Yeah, but the antithesis of the topic. Where would you end a character? Like there's got to be one.
I didn't disagree with Storm, and I haven't disagreed with many of them. I've just pointed out some potential pratfalls.
Yeah, Jason Todd. Yep, we talked about him. Lex Luthor should have stayed dead. Oh, after issue number 700, he's done. Or before the death of Superman, he was killed.
No, also, almost croaked off from cancer too. And Mary came back as his own clone. With the red hair and the beard.
Yeah, and the beard and such. And then he goes crazy and he destroys Metropolis and such. So there you go. But anyway, I like this as a topic. If you guys can think of any where we could talk about, where we can look and go, okay, wait a second, this would have been the perfect narrative ending for this character, by all means, let us know in the comments below, not the chat, in the comments when this is posted. I hope you dug the conversation there, Eric. I thought it was kind of fun. And so by all means, are we doing a show tonight? I think so. I can't really be sure right now. I did get some information, and I don't know what's going to happen. So keep an eye out for that at 9 o'clock tomorrow. Of course, join Maranya and everybody for the game. That should be cool. And on Thursday, I should have an unboxing. And are you guys doing a fossils on Wednesday?
Well, in some capacity.
All righty. And of course, you got the Geeky Puppet Show. But anyway, thank you for hanging out with us this afternoon. As always, Twiddles and I say thank you very, very much for watching. Have a good night.
Good afternoon, kids.
Good afternoon. That's right. Yeah, we're in the afternoon still.